off. My name is Joan Hannon, I'm director of the festival, and every year we have this little kind of bet as to what I fancy chairing. So when I got the email that basically said, here's a list, what do you fancy? And I saw Lucy's book, I was right. And apparently they were running some kind of bet in the office to say she's going to go for the cat lady. And I did. So this is my annual treat, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you all here. I had dinner with Lucy last night. She's absolutely amazing. Lucy is the author of the absolutely brilliant, I'm about a quarter of the way through, book called The Book Your Cat Wishes You Would Read. I can certainly, having gone part of the way into the book, my cat Frank definitely wishes I had read this book quite some time ago. I'm getting all kinds of hints and tips because I am the bottom of the family food chain when it comes to this cat. My husband, my daughter, the cat tray, the neighbour, I am way down the list and I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So this is the most fascinating occupation I have literally never heard of. Lucy is a feline behaviourist who has been improving the lives of cats and their carers, me, since 2010, as well as lecturing internationally. And this is the bit, I work in education and I did not know you could do this, and I'm seriously considering a major career change. Lucy completed a master's degree in companion animal behavioural counselling at the University of Southampton, and is one of only a handful of exclusively feline clinical animal behaviourists practicing in the UK. Lucy and her family live in Southampton with 2 cats, Faith and Sparks, the Labrador Bucky, and I literally had to look up what this meant. Peach the axolot. How the cats haven't had an engagement with the axolotl, I don't quite know. So Lucy's going to share with us how to build a more loving, patient and rewarding friendship with our feline friends. She's going to talk for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to throw it straight out to you guys for questions. And I, for one, am thoroughly looking forward to my festival treat. So thank you very much, and over to Lucy.
Thank you, that was so kind. Thank you very much. And I can skip over my first slide, which essentially says all that.
Oh gosh, sorry.
But yeah, basically my job tends to take me in 2 directions. It's like helping people one-on-one, which obviously I love, and that's sort of the day job. But it's also helping to spread information as far and wide as we can, because so many people have cats, but not everyone loves their cats. And I'm sure you guys don't fall into that camp. But I find there's lots of people who just have a cat living in their house, and they're not fussed about learning about their cat's behaviour, which is fine, because not everyone is. But I feel like they get a bad rep a lot of the time. So today's talk is focusing on cat behaviour uncovered, so busting those myths and talking about why they get such a bad reputation and how we can sort of change that. So I'm just going to whiz through what I'm talking about today. So cover a little bit about the common misconceptions we have about cats and why they're so misunderstood, even though they're such a popular animal. And then I'm going to take us through a few specific scenarios that example why we give them such a bad reputation, and like things that seem terrible but actually quite understandable and quite logical if you look at things from a cat's point of view. And then at the end there's just a little bit on the role of learning, because what cats learn about how we interact with them and how we respond to their natural behaviour can explain a lot of the problem behaviours that I have to deal with. So we'll see. Obviously would never call my cats or any cats any of these things, but these are things I hear all the time, even from people that have asked me to come in to help with their cats. They care enough to try to understand more and to try to make sure their cat's happy and to stop them weighing on the bed or attacking their kids or whatever the problem is. They still feel like their cat is any one of these. So their problem behaviours are something they've done on purpose to get back at us, or there's no way that we could train them to do something that we actually want. Though, how have we gotten to wee in a box? How did we even do that? We took a wild animal and now they just wee in a box, which is crazy. And they just have this reputation of being an antisocial, totally independent and low maintenance animal, which I'm sure most people agree. Actually, that's not the case, especially if your cat's waking you at 3 o'clock in the morning. That is anything but low maintenance. So we think about some reasons as to why they're so misunderstood. One of the biggest things is that we compare them to dogs, and I think it's something that either happens by non-cat lovers or it's just something that we just do automatically. So dogs are so different in that they're a social species, like they're geared to communicate with us, they want to tell us things. and cats aren't, obviously. And dogs are good for the ego. This is what I always think, like when you come home from work, your dog comes running over and they're wagging their tail and you're like, oh yeah, you're happy, that's quite obvious to me. Whereas if your cat comes sauntering down from upstairs, it looks like they're just minding their own business, but actually that is a really positive sign, and that is that it's just very, much more subtle. So if we compare the two types of behaviours, then the cat does look like the one that can't be bothered, or the one that's not so forthcoming in that loving communication. They really are. And their communication is more long distance. So they are an avoidant species, which what I mean by that is that if they get scared, they run away, for the most part. So they don't want to interact face to face with someone that might be potentially dangerous, or another cat that they might potentially fight with. So this is why we see Euromarking, and we see like long distance communication where it's like, I'll leave that mark there for another cat to come and explore later when I'm totally gone, and the risk is free. So we don't do that. We like to communicate face to face, so obviously there's a bit of a mismatch there in how we try to communicate with them and how they're wanting to communicate with us. We have this thing where we think that cats are solitary. They have that little reputation where it's a solitary animal, but if we think about it, obviously they're not solitary because they live in our houses, they live with people, they live with other cats for the most part, if you've got a multi-cat household. So they're not a solitary animal, but their social behaviour is sort of in its infancy, and like they're learning to live with people, they're learning to live with other cats. And they still have this mentality of they're predators and prey. So if you think about that, then if you're a predator, cats don't share their food, they don't hunt together in packs, they just look after themselves. So if they get injured, then they're not going to be able to hunt. So in their mind, they're at risk, they're vulnerable. So the same as if they're a prey species, if they're injured, then they're more likely to get picked off. So the most important thing for them is keeping themselves safe. So that just changes their behaviour in so many different ways, and that's why they like to get up high on top of the kitchen worktops, because they want to keep an eye on their territory, they want to know what's going on. So they come across as these really annoying control freaks that just want to be, they want to know everything about what's happening, and if they get scared, then they just disappear. So if we look at our cats from in this frame of mind, it's much more easier to understand how why they come up with these behaviour problems and how these are manifested and why they got to that point. So it's also important to think of the role of anthropomorphism. So what views are we putting on our cats? What are we giving them that's not actually happening? What characteristics are we placing on them? So this can have good and bad effects. So lots of people consider their cats to be their children, which is fine. Lots of people I speak to are purposely choosing not to have kids now, and their cats become like that role for them. So that's amazing, and they empathise with them better, and they're able to meet their needs better because they want the very best for their cat, and they want to make sure that the cat has absolutely everything that they need. So that's obviously a very good consequence of thinking about cats in that way. But there can be a more harmful side effect of that as well. So because we put these emotions on them, if your cat poos on your bed, then people think that's on purpose, people think they're being spiteful, and it's easy to get cross at them for that, because if that's the way you're thinking, then obviously you want to tell them off, you want to punish them, whereas that's obviously not make any difference to the cat's behaviour. Other things is that we feel like our cat's lonely and they need a friend, whereas actually cats don't have that sort of social need to be with another cat like a dog does, or like we do. We want to be around people. So getting another cat in as that cat's friend can sometimes miss the mark, and that your cat's probably thinking, why have you done this? This is the last thing I wanted. But it's our projection on them. We don't want them to be lonely, we want them to have a brother or a sister or a playmate. So it can lead to problems. And the pain response is something I'll talk about later, but just basically the fact that when we're in pain, we cry, we go to someone, we go, I need help, I'm in pain. Whereas for a cat, they withdraw, they hide. So we might think, yeah, our cat's fine, when actually, because they're not crying out, because they're not, they're just hiding away more, we're missing all that stuff. So I feel like that's just so important. And my cats are quite old now, and I constantly have it in the back of my mind, are you okay? Are your teeth sore? Are your bones okay? Are your joints all right? So yeah, it's just making sure that we're looking at them as cats and not as people. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to take us through some common examples of areas where cats get a bad reputation. Hunting has to be the one that, how can you defend a cat when they're being so difficult and what they're doing is just looks so terrible? So obviously cats are naturally hunters, but often they don't eat what they catch. Like if they were hunting and eating it, then you could probably justify that as, well, they're cats, that's what they do, and it's part of circle of life. Whereas actually, if they're just catching it, bringing it home, batting it around, or leaving it on the bedside table, as I say, but yeah, bedside table, or on the kitchen floor, it's hard to justify that, because it's like, why have you done this? And it's so horrible to deal with. So what we need to remember is that it is an innate behaviour, and it's something that they haven't had a chance to evolve out of them yet, because they've only really been domesticated in the last 10,000 years. So that's not long enough for them to actually think, I don't need to hunt anymore. And if we remember, they're solitary hunters, so they're not a solitary species, but they do hunt by themselves. So they can't forget that, because if suddenly they find themselves as a stray, or back in the feral population, which some do, then they're not going to be able to survive. So we can't expect them to forget that, and we can't have it both ways. And you'll know, if you walk downstairs with your dressing gown cord trailing behind you, it's absolutely innate. They can't help but be like, yes, and chase them after you for that thing. So this is something that we can't expect them to forget. And also, most of their hunting, if they're free living, most of their hunts are unsuccessful. So they'll make 12 attempts at catching, and only 2 will be successful. So they've got all this near misses that they can't wait until they're hungry to be able to then hunt, because they don't have any energy to hunt. So they have to go for every single one. So if you're attracting birds to your garden with a beautiful bird feeder, or they're not gonna just let that opportunity go by. For some cats at least, my cats, they absolutely would. But if you've got a hunter on your hands, then it's too much to ask them to just put all that natural stuff aside and not even bother to do it. And also that if they're well fed, they'll still hunt, because they have got the energy to do the hunting. So almost a well-fed cat is a worse hunter than a hungry one. Or a better hunter, sorry. So what we have to remember about wildlife populations is that cats get a bad reputation about impact on wildlife populations and the effects they've had here, there and everywhere. And I'm not playing that down, because I do feel that's very important. What I also think it's good to flag here is that it's not the pets that are making that dent in populations, it's the ferals, it's the strays, because they're having to hunt to live, and the feral population is so big that then obviously the knock-on is that they're having such a big impact on wildlife. So we really need to focus on population control at the very start, so neutering, which we'll come to later, but so many times pet cats are making their way back into the feral population and then freely being able to reproduce, and this is on us, because these are our cats that we didn't neuter at the time, and they've gone out and they've spread this, they've spread. So that's where we need to focus our efforts to stop that problem. So another problem is the social requirements of cats. So they are thought of as being solitary, but then we end up having multi-cat households where we've got tons of cats living in the same home with mixed results. So sometimes I go to someone's house and they've got 8 cats, and I think, what am I going to find when I go in here? And actually, it's working perfectly, and I'm like, oh, I was not expecting that. Other times you have just 1 or 2 cats, and they're at each other's throats, and it's terrible. So there is no set rule. It's not a case of being like, oh, if you've got a 4-bedroom house, then you can have 4 cats, or whatever. It is to do with the animals that you have, and their personality and the environment that they live in. So this can give them a bad reputation in that for some cats, if we've got a bonded pair and then one passes away, then the natural thing for us to do is want to bring in a new replacement for that, because we've seen that behaviour where they're snuggling up together, they're grooming one another, they're spending time together and hanging out together, and all of a sudden that's gone. So clearly what they need is someone else to do all that stuff with. Whereas this very rarely goes well. I don't know if anyone's had this situation, but often that cat will be replaced with a kitten. So if you've got an older cat, then suddenly they're going to be like, I did not sign up for this. The kitten that will want to play, that will pounce on them, that will want to chase them around, and is very difficult to be around. And that bond was developed over years and years of that lovely, like, calm behaviour and all that lovely feedback they were getting from each other. All of a sudden, you can't do that with a stranger. Like, we wouldn't expect that to work in any other scenario, but I guess it's hard seeing your cat grieve that that feels like a proactive thing that you could do to help them, whereas actually we just need to support them through that period. Because the guilt you feel after getting that kitten, because you're like, I didn't want this kitten. Like, now I love her, but I got her for you, and now you're miserable, and I'm bonded to this kitten. So now what do? We don't want to rehome her, but everyone's miserable, so it's very tricky. So we really need to remember that cats are flexible in their social requirements. So as a species, they can fit into lots of different social situations. They can live in multi-cat households, they can live with people, they can live with dogs. They can live on their own, like truly solitary, where they're just living a free life and helping themselves out of bins and like dropping into the butchers to see what they can get. And others live in huge colonies. I think in I don't know if it's still there, but in Longleat Forest, there's a massive colony of cats and kittens that keep popping into people's little chalets when they're there for their holidays, which I'd love. But I keep seeing people, well, I have seen people in the past, want to bring those kittens home because they're like, oh, it's a kitten, it needs a warm bed, it needs food, it needs everything. Whereas actually, it's a feral, it's okay. They can live in the forest, that's what they want to do. So they have this massive spectrum of where they can live and how they can thrive, but that's as a species, not as an individual. So I know if I put my cats in the forest in Longleat, they wouldn't last a day. So it's not their case that your cat can live in a multi-cat household or your cat has to be solitary or your cat whatever. They have their specific social needs. So that's what we have to think about when replacing or bringing in a new cat. How is your cat going to respond to that? How is the cat you're getting going to respond to that? Because it's not clear cut. I think I'll settle that. Yeah. So yeah, we should, when it's a case of a bonded pair, we need to help that cat grieve and let them grieve. They've lost their companion, so it's okay for them to be sad. And let's not try to fix that by bringing in a kitten, because it's probably not going to help. Inappropriate exploiting is one of the most common problems that I see. So cats that we outside the litter tray, poo on the doormat, poo on your side of the bed, or behind the TV, I think I've seen everything. And people are just so challenged with this behaviour where they just feel like it's on purpose and they just feel like it's directed at them. Especially if it's you've gone away for the night and you come home, there's poo on the doormat. That's very everything that you're seeing there looks like they've left that for you as a message to be I was not okay with that. Why did you go without me? Whereas actually, it's normally stress related and it's normally an indication that A, they're not happy. So it might be that they were sad that you left because they're anxious, because you're the one that chases away the bully cat that comes and stares in the window every day and you're not here. Or you weren't there to scoop the litter tray and it's, no, I'm not going there. So there's so much to unpick there, but we really need to take out the whole narrative that it's on purpose. Sorry, I've skipped ahead. So yeah, so it could be stress, it could be illness, that's another common one as well. Stress will feed into all sorts of urinary issues for cats. They get cystitis, they've got pain, and that contributes to a lot of over-grooming as well. If you've got a cat that over-grooms their tummy, they've probably got a tummy ache. So, and that can be caused by stress. Although it's a medical issue, there could be a behavioural cause there that's all feeding in and just making it horribly complicated. So yeah, we have to have an awareness of this and also understand that they do need their tray cleaned every day. We can't expect them to keep using the same old tray if we've gone away for the day and it's not clean as it normally would be. So I guess a lot of this stuff and a lot of my job is just helping, I don't need to resolve the problem as such, it's more that helping to get that person to understand their cat's needs and then getting them to meet those needs. You need to scoop your litter every day. That's a given. So sometimes these things just resolve themselves once the person's oh, okay, yeah, that makes much more sense. And they need empathy. That's probably the biggest overarching thing across all these things is we need to see the world from their point of view and not tell them off. Furniture scratching is another one that I get all the time, but not something people like are willing to pay for help for. I think like people have an awareness of like, oh, you've got a cat, that's just what you have to put up with. If your sofa's in bits, then like mine, then it's just part of it. And for some of it, it is. But it does, like people say, I swear they do it on purpose. I swear, like they only do it when I'm in the room, or it feels like it's personal. I had a lady who was like, should I buy the really expensive sofa or shall I buy like the cheapy one? And I was like, the cheapy one, because we're still working on like improving. And then no, I'll go for the expensive one. And then it's shredded to fits immediately. And I was like, okay, so yeah, it's something we can help with. So cats will scratch for a number of reasons, and all of them are understandable if, again, you see it from their point of view. So they have to scratch. You can't train out of them. It's not something that they just can't do. The main reason for that is to maintain their claws. So most people, the cat lovers will know, but when cats are actually stropping on something, they're sharpening their claws. So lots of people go, oh no, they're wearing down their claws on the scratch case. I'm like, no, they're sharpening their claws on there, because it will take off like the worn down layer and reveal the sharper layer underneath. That's why you often see little husks like on the bottom of the post. So they need to be able to do that. If they don't do that, the claws will grow round and back into the pad. So if you don't have anything, like a scratch post or a cardboard board, like a scratching board, then they will do it on your sofa, because what else, like I need to do this, where else am I going to do this? Particularly if they're indoor cats as well, because they could go out and do it on a fence post or a tree stump or something. So they absolutely have to have something. But often people will have the cat tree and it's totally ignored in favour of the sofa. So in this scenario, what's probably happening is it's more, well, either the sofa is better than the cat tree, which for the most part it is, because they need something that they can properly stretch up to. And if your post is that big and you're expecting them to do that on it, that's not going to happen. You need to be able to stretch up really high. And like the arm of the sofa is a pretty good height to be able to do that. And you need to make sure it's not wobbly. So the amount of cat trees I see like that big, and I'm like, oh yes, amazing, but it's like leaning over and it's all rickety if you walk past it. They're not going to have a go on that, because as soon as they do, it's going to wobble and they're going to feel uncomfortable. Like, have a go on that good sturdy sofa that never moves. It's padded so you can get your claws right in there. So it all makes sense. Like, why are we expecting them to use a post when they can use this sofa? Because it's perfect. Sofa carpet, like it doesn't move and they can get their claws, especially got a really like squashy, plushy one, and get their claws like right in there. So we shouldn't be turning them off this, even though I know it's frustrating. But there's also an element of marking as well. So cats have scent glands in between their pads. So as they're stropping, they're leaving their scent behind. So if you're finding that they're doing it like on the arm of the sofa, that's right in the middle of your room, then that's more probably a territory thing, because the living area where your sofas are is a really important part of the territory for a lot of cats. It's like where everyone comes together, they spend time there, so they want to make their mark there just as much as we do. Like, we want to put our picture on the wall, we want to have our colour schemes and whatever we need, and they want to leave their scent behind. So make sure your cat trees and the scratch posts are in those areas, because it might not be like the preference for the thing, but more the location. So that might be helpful. They stretch their muscles when they do it as well, so like I said, they need to be able to do that up high. Some of them want to do it flat rather than up. So if you've got a cat that does it on the carpet, but you've got a vertical post, then you might need a flat something, because they might want to sit down and do it, especially if they're older. They might not have might have achy joints and might not want to reach up high, so they might want to do it down low. And sometimes they do it to express emotions, like when you come home from work and they come running towards you and then they have a little dig and they're really excited and that. So I don't feel like this is a behaviour that we want to train out of them, even if we could, because a lot of the time it's part of like their day. It's what they need to do to be able to express those emotions. So if you've got a cat, it's something you've got to live with. You either have a ginormous cat tree in the middle of your front room, or you let them go sit on the sofa. I think that's probably two options. Okay, so neutering, this is like a little bugbear of mine that I try to slide into every talk I do. But neutering male cats is something that has such a massive impact, both on the cat, like as a species, but also for the individual that we're looking at. So female cats I tend to find are neutered more often, because obviously you don't want to end up with kittens, and if your cat becomes pregnant then you'll be responsible for that, and you can, like most females are like, okay, let's get them neutered. But for males, some people are feeling like, actually, that's not my problem, it's fine, like, I'm not going to be longer than kittens, and I don't know why I should put them through that if we don't need to. But actually, if you look at the behaviour of neutered males compared to not neutered males, they actually have a really hard life. And if you follow any rescues, or if you're involved in any rescues, then you'll know like the impact that an unneutered male has on the population of cats around and on the health of that cat, because they will be fighting, because they'll be fighting for females, and they'll be roaming a lot further because they're looking for something or someone. So they'll be much more likely to get run over, or to get stuck somewhere, or to get lost. And if your entire cat is lost, then because they're not neutered, these are the cats that are going to go and reproduce, and obviously impacting on that kitten population. Because they're fighting, they're going to get at much worse risk of disease. So it's important that we look after them. And like, entire cats don't make very good pets. Like, I know that's horrible and that's a generalisation, but like, if you breed, and if you have a stud cat in your home, for the most part, you can't keep them in the house. I don't know if that's the same across the board, but they need to be kept away because they probably will give you a mark. They probably won't want to spend much time with you because at the forefront of their mind is, I need to find a female. So they don't care about being your pet. So if we neuter them, then we'll have a much better chance of making a better relationship with them, because they want to be at home, sleep on the bed, sleep on your lap, and like, yeah, they might still go out, but they're not going to roam as far, they're not going to have that additional motivation to get out there and find someone and fight someone. So I just like to keep that in. Okay, this is one of my most favourite slides because, as I said earlier, the pain response is something that we misgauge, like, a lot. And when you read, like, the behaviours of a cat in pain, they're so subtle. But these two pictures show it really, really well. So this cat, oh, I forgot his name. I believe his name is Edwin. And it's from the cat rescue, the cat welfare group who were in Southampton Way. And they posted this on their Facebook page, and I was like, can I have it, please? Because the cat, it's the same cat, when they found him, he had a shattered pelvis. And you can see his body language is absolutely screaming, ow, that really hurts. So when you read like the list of facial expressions there, like, how are you supposed to know what tense eyes are? Or the ear slightly turned? Or like, if someone said that to you, like, is your cat in pain? Are their ears slightly turned? You'd be like, I don't know. Whereas here, you can see, on his ears, you can see a little bit of the back from the front, just a little bit. So they're not turned right back as if he was like angry or cross, but it's enough to be like, oh, okay, you don't look comfortable. And his eyes, I think because someone's come over to him, his eyes are more open, but I imagine if he was left, they would be almost closed. And you can see the tightness in his muzzle, like where his whiskers are coming out. It's sort of like quite a rigid W shape. Whereas at the picture below, when he's fully recovered and clearly very happy, his muzzle's much more relaxed, and like his head position, like at the top, he's hunched. His head is lower than his back, whereas at the bottom, obviously, he's much more upright. He's much more comfortable. So I know if your cats were looking at the top one, you would immediately know he was not okay, but it's just so difficult to know that that cat was in that much pain, and this is what you see. You just see a cat who's just like, if you walk past that cat and you weren't a cat person and you didn't know, you'd just be like, oh, that cat's fine. And actually, he's got a shattered pelvis. It's really difficult to see. So, what I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but they just get such a bad rep when they need so much empathy. And it just needs to swing like totally the opposite way. Like, we really need to tune into what they're trying to tell us, because for the most part, they're not okay. Or sometimes they're not okay, and it's going right over our heads. So again, it's just something else that we want to tune into, just to make sure that we're doing our best for them. So just talking a bit about the role of learning, and this is like when cats get the reputation of being manipulative because they're doing something to get a specific outcome. So I find sometimes I feel like my job is to defend them. So when people come to me with these tricky behaviours, I'm like, no, hang on, it's not what you think. So some issues they're predisposed to, which we'll cover in a moment. So like, it might start as a natural behaviour, but then because of how we responded, it's now a really big problem. So I don't know whose fault that is it theirs, is it ours? I guess it's a mixture of both. But once it's been reinforced in some way, then it's difficult to break the habit. So you might have a problem that started 10 years ago, and now it's very difficult to break. Like when I go to people's houses and their cat's been urine marking for 5 years, I think, well, do you remember the very first time it happened? And they go, well, no, it was 5 years ago. And I'm like, well, yeah, but how am I supposed to now unpick that problem? Because they've done it every day for that much time. So they get this reputation of being manipulative and yeah, not being nice, when actually it makes perfect sense. So, you have a cat flap. No, everyone has had this. And this is the one where it does like, however long, if it's a standoff between you and them, that cat's winning every single time. Like, even you put your dinner down, pause the TV, and then you go and do it and let them out. So they're territorial animals. They want to know what's going on outside their house. But like I said, they are motivated to avoid threat. They don't want to put themselves in risky situations because they're predator, they're prey, they need to keep themselves safe, otherwise their survival is at risk. So, if they're going to squeeze themselves through a cat flap and there's another cat on the other side, they're at risk. And that only has to happen once when they're like, I'm never going up there again. And like once they're halfway through and they're like, I don't want to do this, then what are they going to do? They can't back out, they have to do it. So if you open the door for them and they've got panoramic views of the garden, they can be like, okay, the coast is clear, I can go. So once you do it once, then again, so like they have that natural predisposition to being like, I don't want to go through that little hole. I'd much rather go out of this door, which I know can be opened. Once you do it, then obviously they're like, okay, good, I've only got to wait like 2 minutes and I'll do it. And then if you try to ignore it and be like, no, like, come on, we're not doing this every day. But then after an hour, you think, for God's sake, fine, I'll open the door. Now they know they only have to wait an hour. So, well, we're training them, or they're training us, aren't they? So this is a natural problem that we are reinforcing, not for any, like, not on purpose, but why would they use the flap if they know you can open it? It makes perfect sense. Waking owners at night is probably another one that, actually I love these ones because they're normally quite easy to resolve, like it's a hard process, but you get there. But again, it's got a natural cause, so cats are crepuscular, which means that they are active at dawn and dusk, so they're not nocturnal, like some people feel, so they shouldn't be awake all night and sleep all day, but they will be more active when, like, in the early hours. And this is where, like, they might have a Zoom session, they might do some meowing, they might, yeah, disturb you in some way or another. But what we tend to do is be like, are you okay? Like, even I do it when I know I'm setting myself up for a problem. My cat's meowing downstairs in the kitchen, I always go, you okay? You okay, Dada? And I know, I'm like, stop doing it, because I know he's going to be like, oh, okay, you're awake. And like, I've had people that get up and sit with their cats, they go and feed them, you worry about them, just get up and have a cup of tea with the cat. And I think, why? Because they're worried about them, because why are you meowing? You don't normally meow. So obviously, the cat's going to be like, I know exactly how to get you up now because like yesterday you got up, why are you, like today you can do it again. And it's exactly the same situation as like, as soon as I say, like if someone comes to me with this problem and I say, okay, you have to not respond, 100% of the time they've tried it. But obviously what happens with these issues is that it gets much, much worse before it gets better, because if you've got up and had a cup of tea with your cat every night at 3 AM for like months, and then you stop, obviously they're going to be like, no, meow that much more louder for that much longer, and then again, you're going to either give in which case you're making it a lot worse, or you have to don your earplugs, cover yourself in, like, under the covers, and it will get much worse before they're like, oh, okay, fine, it's not happening, and then it improves. So people always come to me right in the middle of that, like, I tried and it's not working, and you have to be like, keep going, because it will get better. So again, that's another problem we developed. Food scavenging is another one, and even I like eat my ham sandwich and a cat's paw comes in from the side, like, I just scoop it out of the bread. But remember that they're opportunistic hunters. Remember how many of their catches are unsuccessful, and how, like, often they need to hunt if they're free living. Like, they will eat little portions, if you like small prey throughout the day. They don't have 2 big meals. So obviously they'll take any opportunity when it comes because they have that innate of like, yeah, I'm not hungry, but I need that because I might be hungry later. And they want to eat little muffins. So they might have a bowl full of food, they've had some of that, but now there's something else that might be better. So this is when obviously you'll get cats up on the kitchen side, picking at leftovers, scavenging in the bin. As soon as they get something, then they know, it's like a little tick's gone off in their mind, like, oh yeah, there's food in there. So it's just a massive reinforcement, and they will do that every time. So you're having to, like, was it the lady in the foyer said her kittens were coming over to, when she was making lunches for the kids, for the ham. And like, so it's such an easily learned behaviour, where it's like, oh, okay, this is a time where I might get some food, so there they are, and I have the exact same thing. So yeah, then you're going to get cats that become much more like keen and super like determined to get whatever it is. So yeah, they'll be stealing from plates, stealing each other's foods, picking up from the bins and stuff. So again, a natural behaviour that makes total sense, like feeding breakfast and dinner doesn't work biologically with me. I need something else. And this is the outcome of that, and then it's reinforced with the food that they might find. Ah, knocking stuff up. This is the one that has the worst rep, because I'm going to look dead in the eye just as they like swipe something off, like the wine glass is going towards the side. But naturally, this is how they play, and they like to poke things to see if they run, because if they run, then they'll chase them. So they have that predisposition, and obviously they're not doing it to annoy you, it's just something that they're exploring their environment, and remember they're territorial, so obviously whatever's there is theirs, and that is a natural behaviour. Plus the fact that they like to gravitate to high places, so if you don't have a cat tree, or if you don't have anything where they can go up, then yes, they'll be on the mantelpiece, they'll be in the shelves, they'll be everywhere, and this is where you have the most expensive things. So I guess, if it's like some people, like, you know, when your cat's doing zoomies and they're like, run around the back of the sofa, up on the mantelpiece, if they're knocking stuff off then, that's not on purpose, that's accidental, but let's give them somewhere where they can do that doesn't have anything on. So clear the mantelpiece off or put yourself a cat tree in. But again, there's natural reinforcement there, because all that moved then, that was fun, and it's like self-rewarding, it's just as if they were playing with a toy or a mouse or something. And then add to that the fact that nothing makes us jump off the sofa quicker than being like, ah, like that's cool. So we either lift them down with like lots of cuddles and snug like I did, like, what are you doing up there? Come on, get down. Or even if we tell them up and be like, no, come on, you're going to break that, then they're like, ooh, so yeah, again, it's a natural thing that we are feeding into the problem and then giving them a bad rep for it. It's not fair. And then just like a last thing, just to, again, another thing I like to slide in everywhere. With whatever behaviour problem that we're dealing with, like urine marking, house soiling, aggression, everything, there's no place for punishment with cats. And I know there isn't with dogs and other species either, but for a cat, even more so, because they're an avoidant species. Like, they're not going to just put up with it and be like, okay, fine, I still love you. They're just going to leave. And that trust is going to be broken down. Like, they won't want to spend time with you, and that relationship will start to deteriorate. Plus, it's not going to work anyway. So, like, no, like, wee problem has ever been resolved by smacking them or rubbing their nose in, ever. I guarantee. So yeah, we really want to focus on understanding why they're doing it, and then that's the clue to figuring out how to resolve it. And a last little thing just to say that they can be trained, and we know that as soon as you go to the cupboard for the dreamies, and your cat is there. So it works, their brain works the same as everybody else's, but we can train them for other things, like getting onto a carrier. We can train them by putting your dreamies inside the carrier every day. You can go in and have that and then come back out. And when it's the bedtime, all you've got to do is chuck a couple of dreamies in, close the door behind them, and off you go. So we can train for things that make our life easier. Same for medical procedures, like my cat's diabetic, and I was saying to you, he loves his insulin injections. He comes running over and he jumps up on the side and he's like, yes, because he has a little bit of ham. He has a little injection that he doesn't even notice, he has a little bit more ham, lots of colours and lots of fuss, and he absolutely loves it. And if anything, it's much better for me and him now, me and Piggy, that we have that little time twice a day where it's just me. This makes me sound like a crazy cat person. I don't love the fact he has it, but I love the fact that we have those moments, and that is because he's been trained. Train to go into a bed or a stool, up onto a stool just because, like, if they try to snatch things out off your plate and things, you can reward them for being in a certain place when you're having your dinner and things like that. So we can train them for these things, but I've just put be careful training the paw, because, like, if you train them to do that at you, then when you're like having a cup of tea or watching telly, then you'll notice this paw coming, and then if you don't give them attention, the claws come out, and you'll end up like, I have that problem at night now where I'm like, what? Oh, why are you scratching me? But he's like poking, because I taught him a paw all those years ago. But yeah, so just finally then, just to say that despite this reputation that they seem to have, that they're actually like horrible, a-holes, aloof, independent, all these things, actually, when you look at the cat in your house that's snuggled up to you at night, that's not really accurate, it doesn't fit. And the times where they are doing things that are difficult, then they can all be explained. So, and like we're contributing to the problem most of the time. So that's really important to keep in mind, I think, to help change that. And just across the board, we need to empathise with them, I think, and that will help us be better owners and help avoid the problems that make our lives difficult anyway. So, thank you for listening.